Humans had long been forgotten by the galaxy's most powerful empires. After centuries of isolation, Earth and its colonies were considered nothing more than a distant memory. Most of the galaxy's rulers, especially the Alien Federation, had moved on, focusing on conquering new star systems and advancing their technologies. They had long dismissed Earth as a primitive world that had nothing of value left to offer. After all, the humans had once been powerful, but their empires had fallen, leaving only old ruins and forgotten history. The Alien Federation, a group of powerful, technologically advanced species, had grown accustomed to wiping out lesser races without a second thought. Their ships, massive and sleek, filled the skies of countless worlds, while their leaders reveled in the superiority of their eye-controlled armies and energy-based weapons. The Federation had already crushed many civilizations, and with little to no effort, had wiped out any human resistance they found on Earth's colonies. One fateful day, the Alien Federation arrived at Earth's forgotten colonies on the edge of the galaxy. Their flagship, a colossal vessel brimming with advanced weaponry and artificial intelligence, moved into the system. The Federation's commander, a tall and imposing alien with dark blue skin, surveyed the ancient human ships orbiting Earth from his command bridge. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the old warships, which now seemed like little more than space junk. The humans had once used these mighty vessels to defend themselves against threats, but that was centuries ago. Now, they were nothing more than rusted relics, remnants of a time long past. The commander let out a laugh, the sound echoing through the ship's control room. He turned to his crew, who shared in his amusement. These are the remnants of the humans. Ancient warships, outdated tech, and forgotten history. He scoffed, shaking his head. This will be an easy mission. We'll erase this Earth from existence in no time. With a simple order, the Federation's fleet began to power up its weapons, preparing to strike Earth's last outposts. The commander believed the humans had nothing left to defend themselves with. He thought the destruction of their colonies would be swift and effortless. What the Federation didn't realize, however, was that Earth had not been entirely forgotten. Hidden deep in space, far from the prying eyes of the galaxy, lay a secret humanity had kept for centuries. And in the depths of space, the dormant power of an ancient warship was about to awaken. Suddenly, as the alien ships began their assault, something unexpected happened. A strange, eerie signal began to emanate from Earth's last remaining dreadnought, the Eternal Resolve. This enormous ship, thought to be just another forgotten relic, began to flicker to life. The dull lights that had long faded into darkness blinked on, casting an unsettling glow across the surrounding space. The alien ships halted for a moment, confused by the strange pulse that spread through their communication systems. The signal was unlike anything they had encountered before, a mix of frequencies that seemed both ancient and impossibly advanced at the same time. The commander's smug expression faltered as he stared at his monitor. His fleet's systems were suddenly malfunctioning. Communication lines crackled, and some ships briefly lost power. "What is this?" he muttered, trying to regain control over his ship's systems. The Eternal Resolve signal was messing with their technology, causing glitches and static to spread across their fleet. For the first time, the alien commander felt a pang of doubt. Could this be something more dangerous than they had anticipated? Then, in that frozen moment of confusion, when every alien ship was gripped by an eerie stillness, a single line echoed through the cosmos, cutting through the static. It was a voice, human, clear, and commanding, speaking directly to the Federation. "We are not as you remember us." The words hung in the void, chilling the bones of every alien in the fleet. The voice carried with it a power, a promise, and a threat. The alien commander's heart skipped a beat. The humans had been silent for so long. How had they hidden such power? How had they kept this secret, tucked away in the far reaches of space, while the Federation destroyed everything in their path? The silence that followed was deafening. The Federation's fleet, for the first time, seemed unsure of their next move. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. This wasn't going to be as easy as they thought. The Eternal Resolve wasn't just an old warship, it was a weapon humanity had kept hidden for generations, waiting for the right moment to strike back. The alien commander quickly recovered, barking orders at his crew, trying to regain control over the situation. But even as he spoke, the Eternal Resolve's lights grew brighter, and its pulse grew stronger. It was waking up, and with it, the hope of humanity. The Federation's fleet began to move again, but the air was thick with uncertainty. The humans had sent a message, and it was clear. Earth was not going down without a fight. The Eternal Resolve had remained dormant for centuries, buried deep in the forgotten reaches of space. A ship so ancient that few remembered its existence. Its sleek, massive frame, built to withstand the harshest battles, had once been humanity's strongest weapon. The last of Earth's mighty dreadnoughts, it had been abandoned by the humans long ago, or so the galaxy believed. But hidden away from prying eyes, the Eternal Resolve had never truly been abandoned. It had simply been forgotten by the universe, its powerful systems left untouched, waiting for the right moment to awaken. That moment had finally come. The fleet of the alien Federation, smug in their belief that humanity was a weak and primitive species, had underestimated Earth's legacy. As the first pulse of power surged through the Eternal Resolve, the ancient warship began to hum, its systems flickering to life. Long-dormant AI systems, designed to think and act independently, came online, analyzing the situation. Quantum reactors, untouched by the passage of time, roared back into operation. Cloaking technology, once thought to be a myth, began to shift the ship's massive form in and out of view, making it nearly impossible to track. On board the Eternal Resolve, Captain Alexi stood at the command bridge, his eyes focused on the view screen in front of him. He had fought for Earth's survival against impossible odds, leading countless missions in defense of humanity. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. The return of a ship that had once been a symbol of mankind's might, now thought to be little more than a ghost. His grip tightened on the console in front of him. "It's time," he muttered to himself. "For too long we've been silent. Now we remind the galaxy who we are." The crew of the Eternal Resolve had always known that humanity would one day return to the stars. They had trained in secret, prepared for the day when they would once again fight to protect their home and their people. Now that day had arrived. Each member of the crew was a veteran, men and women who had fought for Earth's survival during the darkest times. And now, they were ready for their final stand. Bonner looked over to his crew. They were focused, prepared, and determined. He could see the emotional weight in their eyes, the same determination that had carried them through countless battles. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for every human who had ever been forgotten or lost in the galaxy. This was their moment of redemption. The alien Federation fleet, once so confident in their victory, was now facing something they couldn't comprehend. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. As the first wave of enemy ships advanced, the Eternal Resolve's weapon systems activated. The ship's AI calculated the optimal trajectory for its weapons, powering up the ancient cannons for the first time in over a century. Bonner stood still, watching the enemy fleet grow closer. His fingers hovered over the command console. He could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation of what was about to come. Then, in one swift motion, he gave the order. Fire. The Eternal Resolve's cannons roared to life with a deafening boom, shaking the very space around them. The quantum-powered energy blasts shot out at impossible speeds, striking the first wave of the Federation's ships with devastating accuracy. Alien ships exploded in brilliant fireballs as the blasts tore through their shields and hulls. Their advanced technology, no match for the raw power of the Eternal Resolve. The alien fleet had no time to react. They had come prepared to wipe out Earth's last remnants, expecting an easy victory. But now they were in chaos, their ships scattered, unable to organize a counterattack, as the Eternal Resolve picked them off one by one. The Federation's advanced eye-controlled vessels, which had once been so precise and calculated, were now scrambling to adapt to an enemy they couldn't predict. It was as if the Eternal Resolve was a living being, knowing exactly what to do to bring the fight to them. On board the Eternal Resolve, Bonner watched the destruction unfold on the screens in front of him. There was no joy in his eyes, no sense of triumph. He knew that this was just the beginning, and the road ahead would be fraught with more dangers. But in that moment, he allowed himself a brief sense of satisfaction. The humans had been forgotten, laughed at, and dismissed. But now, they were showing the galaxy their true power. They laughed, Bonner muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Now let them see what they woke up. The words were a promise that humanity would not go quietly into the night. The Federation had underestimated them, but they had learned their lesson too late. Earth was not a forgotten world. It was a sleeping giant, and its roar had just been heard across the stars. As the first wave of alien ships fell, the remaining forces scrambled to regroup. But Bonner knew this was far from over. The Eternal Resolve had only just begun to show its strength. The Federation's advanced fleet had no idea what they were up against, and humanity, led by Bonner and his crew, was ready to show them the full might of what they had been hiding all along. The battle was far from over, but one thing was clear. Humanity had returned, and they would not be ignored any longer. The Eternal Resolve was back, and the galaxy would never forget the name of Earth again. The Alien Federation had quickly realized their mistake. A single human warship, outdated and seemingly obsolete, was dealing a devastating blow to their technologically superior fleet. They had never expected Earth's forces to fight back with such ferocity, especially not with a relic of the past. The Eternal Resolve, a ship thought to be long dead, was proving to be anything but. It wasn't just the ship's firepower that was dangerous. It was the tactics employed by Bonner and his crew that were catching the aliens off guard. The Eternal Resolve had been designed for war on a scale the Federation couldn't have comprehended. While their ships were more advanced in terms of technology, they lacked the guerrilla warfare expertise that humanity had perfected over the centuries. The humans aboard the Eternal Resolve weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their home, for their people, and for every human who had ever been dismissed or forgotten. Their tactics were unconventional, designed to confuse and overwhelm a more powerful enemy. Bonner knew the only way to stand a chance against a fleet this large and powerful was to strike unpredictably, and he had an advantage. The Eternal Resolve's cloaking technology. Though primitive by modern standards, the ship's cloaking device was still far beyond anything the Federation had encountered. It was nearly impossible for the alien ships to detect it. At a moment's notice, the Eternal Resolve could vanish from sight, only to reappear in the heart of the enemy fleet, unleashing hell with its devastating weapons. The crew had spent countless hours training for this moment, preparing to fight in ways the Federation would never expect. They used their ship's advanced AI to its fullest potential, sending out drones controlled by the ship's intelligence to infiltrate enemy vessels. These AI-driven drones were small but deadly, capable of bypassing the most advanced security systems and delivering precise strikes to the alien ship's weak points. They were like a swarm of bees, buzzing around the Federation's armada, causing havoc and confusion in their wake. As the Eternal Resolve cloaked itself and silently positioned itself in the middle of the enemy armada, Bonner's voice came over the intercom. "Prepare for the attack," he said. His voice was calm, but anyone who knew him could hear the tension beneath it. The stakes were higher than ever before, and they all knew it. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The silence that followed was deafening. The Federation's fleet, for the first time, seemed unsure of their next move. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. This wasn't going to be as easy as they thought. The Eternal Resolve wasn't just an old warship. It was a weapon humanity had kept hidden for generations, waiting for the right moment to strike back. The alien commander quickly recovered, barking orders at his crew, trying to regain control over the situation. But even as he spoke, the Eternal Resolve's lights grew brighter, and its pulse grew stronger. It was waking up, and with it, the hope of humanity. The Federation's fleet began to move again, but the air was thick with uncertainty. The humans had sent a message, and it was clear. Earth was not going down without a fight. The Eternal Resolve had remained dormant for centuries, buried deep in the forgotten reaches of space. A ship so ancient that few remembered its existence. Its sleek, massive frame, built to withstand the harshest battles, had once been humanity's strongest weapon. The last of Earth's mighty dreadnoughts, it had been abandoned by the humans long ago, or so the galaxy believed. But hidden away from prying eyes, the Eternal Resolve had never truly been abandoned. It had simply been forgotten by the universe, its powerful systems left untouched, waiting for the right moment to awaken. That moment had finally come. The fleet of the alien Federation, smug in their belief that humanity was a weak and primitive species, had underestimated Earth's legacy. As the first pulse of power surged through the Eternal Resolve, the ancient warship began to hum, its systems flickering to life. Long-dormant AI systems, designed to think and act independently, came online, analyzing the situation. Quantum reactors, untouched by the passage of time, roared back into operation. Cloaking technology, once thought to be a myth, began to shift the ship's massive form in and out of view, making it nearly impossible to track. On board the Eternal Resolve, Captain Alexi stood at the command bridge, his eyes focused on the view screen in front of him. He had fought for Earth's survival against impossible odds, leading countless missions in defense of humanity. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. The return of a ship that had once been a symbol of mankind's might, now thought to be little more than a ghost. His grip tightened on the console in front of him. "It's time," he muttered to himself. "For too long we've been silent. Now we remind the galaxy who we are." The crew of the Eternal Resolve had always known that humanity would one day return to the stars. They had trained in secret, prepared for the day when they would once again fight to protect their home and their people. Now that day had arrived. Each member of the crew was a veteran, men and women who had fought for Earth's survival during the darkest times. And now, they were ready for their final stand. Bonner looked over to his crew. They were focused, prepared, and determined. He could see the emotional weight in their eyes, the same determination that had carried them through countless battles. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for every human who had ever been forgotten or lost in the galaxy. This was their moment of redemption. The alien Federation fleet, once so confident in their victory, was now facing something they couldn't comprehend. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. As the first wave of enemy ships advanced, the Eternal Resolve's weapons systems activated. The ship's AI calculated the optimal trajectory for its weapons, powering up the ancient cannons for the first time in over a century. Bonner stood still, watching the enemy fleet grow closer. His fingers hovered over the command console. He could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation of what was about to come. Then, in one swift motion, he gave the order. Fire. The Eternal Resolve's cannons roared to life with a deafening boom, shaking the very space around them. The quantum-powered energy blasts shot out at impossible speeds, striking the first wave of the Federation's ships with devastating accuracy. Alien ships exploded in brilliant fireballs as the blasts tore through their shields and hulls. Their advanced technology, no match for the raw power of the Eternal Resolve. The battle unfolded before them in a brutal, violent clash of firepower. The AI-driven Federation ships unleashed devastating waves of energy blasts, their advanced weaponry tearing through the space around them. The Eternal Resolve returned fire, its weapons crackling with raw energy, but it was clear that the tide of the battle was beginning to turn. The human warship was struggling to keep up with the onslaught. As the Eternal Resolve fired its weapons, Captain Bonner watched with dread as one of the Federation ships advanced, its massive energy cannons charging for a final strike. Bonner could feel the tension in the air, thick with the weight of what was to come. Suddenly, a bright flash of light erupted on the view screen as the Eternal Resolve took a direct hit. The ship shuddered violently, and the deck beneath Bonner's feet seemed to lurch as the ship's systems began to fail. "Damage report," Bonner shouted, his voice hoarse with panic. He had to keep control. He had to remain strong for his crew. But inside, his heart was pounding. "Main reactor is compromised," came the reply from the engineer. "We're losing power. Shields are down to 30%. Bonner's gaze locked onto the view screen as the Eternal Resolve began to break apart. The once mighty warship, so full of hope and determination, was now being torn apart by the Federation's overwhelming force. Pieces of the ship were drifting into space, and the crew's cries for help echoed in the background. Bonner felt the weight of every life lost. The emotional core of the battle was no longer just about victory. It was about survival, about the future of humanity. "Get to the escape pods," Bonner ordered, his voice breaking. He had no choice now but to save what remained of his crew. The ship was doomed, but they weren't. The crew's sacrifice would not be in vain. As Bonner sprinted toward the escape pods, he couldn't help but look back at the ship. The Eternal Resolve had been his home, his symbol of everything humanity had fought for. He had given everything to this mission. And now, in the blink of an eye, it was all coming to an end. He couldn't accept it. Not yet. There had to be more. There had to be a way to win this. "I'm not giving up," Bonner whispered to himself, his voice cold with determination. "We're not done yet." Just as Bonner was about to board the escape pod, an explosion rocked the ship, sending him crashing to the ground. He gritted his teeth in pain, struggling to push himself up. The ship's structure was collapsing around him. But Bonner knew he couldn't leave. Not yet. He had to fight. "Bonner," one of his crew members called out, a soldier struggling to stay conscious. "You have to go. It's over." "No," Bonner shouted, his voice full of conviction. "It's not over. We're not finished yet." With renewed strength, Bonner reached for the control panel and activated the ship's emergency override. He had one last option, one final shot to turn the tide. The Eternal Resolve's AI system, though damaged, was still functional. If he could just reroute the power from the damaged sections, they could still launch one final strike. As Bonner worked frantically at the console, his thoughts flashed to his fallen comrades, his friends, his family, every person who had fought alongside him, every life that had been lost. "For every one of us who dies," he whispered under his breath, "1,000 more will rise." The ship's AI system, its once thriving core now reduced to a whisper, responded. The final energy reserves were being funneled into the weapon systems. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as the countdown began. This would be humanity's last chance. "All crew members, brace for impact," Bonner yelled, and with a final decisive push, he activated the ship's main cannon. The Eternal Resolve released its last, most powerful blast, its weapon systems channeling the final surge of power into a devastating strike. The beam tore through the enemy fleet, cutting down ship after ship. The Federation ships, caught off guard by the sheer intensity of the blast, had no time to react. For a brief moment, it seemed as if the Federation's overwhelming force was crumbling before their very eyes. The leader of the Federation's voice crackled over the comms, weak and trembling. "Please," he begged, his voice barely audible. "Spare us. We never meant to go this far. You have won. Please, show mercy." For a moment, Bonner stood there, silent. His mind raced. This was the moment they had fought for. This was the culmination of every sacrifice, every battle. They had lost so much. So many had died. His crew, his friends, they had all given everything to get to this point. But the question still lingered in Bonner's mind. Should they show mercy? Should they let the Federation go? Bonner closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He had fought too hard to give in to mercy now. His duty was to protect Earth, to ensure that humanity's future would not be enslaved by an empire that had once thought them weak. "No mercy," Bonner said, his voice cold and unwavering. "We will make sure you never threaten humanity again." With that, Bonner gave the order to fire. The Eternal Resolve's weapons, though battered and damaged, unleashed one final salvo. The Federation's command ship, crippled and vulnerable, didn't stand a chance. It disintegrated in an instant, its remains scattering across the stars. Humanity had won. The crew of the Eternal Resolve stood together, watching the debris of the once mighty Federation fleet float in the distance. Their victory had been hard won, the cost immense, but it was theirs. Earth had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human, resilient, unyielding, and never willing to give up. Bonner gazed out at the wreckage, a quiet sense of relief washing over him. The fight was over. Humanity had taken its place in the stars, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson they had learned. Never underestimate the strength of the human spirit. The Eternal Resolve drifted through the stars, its hull now marked by the battle scars of a war that had shaken the very foundation of the galaxy. But it was no longer just a warship. It had become a symbol of strength, resilience, and humanity's undeniable place in the vast cosmos. Inside the command center, Captain Alexi Bonner stood silently, gazing at the view outside the ship's window. The distant stars seemed to shimmer with the hope of a new era. Humanity had fought a fierce battle, and against all odds, they had emerged victorious. They had reclaimed their dignity, their strength, and their place among the stars. The Eternal Resolve, though battered and worn, represented everything humanity had been through. The years of obscurity, the loss of friends and family, the constant underestimation by alien forces. Now the ship was the beacon of a new beginning. Earth had taken its first steps back into galactic prominence, and it would not be forgotten. The alien Federation, broken and humbled, had been forced to kneel before humanity. The once untouchable Federation leader, captured and defeated, was now a prisoner in the hands of Earth's government. His once proud demeanor was gone, replaced by fear and desperation. He had been brought to Earth, not as a conqueror, but as a captive, an unwilling messenger to the galaxy about the price of underestimating humanity. In the heart of Earth's government building, the Federation leader stood before an assembly of Earth's leaders, the once great ruler now surrounded by armed guards. The room was filled with tension, but the humans who watched were resolute. They no longer feared the alien empires. They had faced the impossible and triumphed. Now, they demanded that the galaxy recognize Earth's strength and cease any further hostilities. "Tell your masters," Earth's representative spoke coldly, "that humanity will not be enslaved. We are not a primitive race to be crushed underfoot. We have fought, bled, and won. The galaxy will learn that Earth is not to be taken lightly." The Federation leader trembled, his eyes scanning the room full of humans who had once been dismissed as nothing more than an afterthought. He knew, deep down, that the galaxy's perception of humanity had forever changed. His Federation's ships had been destroyed, their fleets shattered, their pride obliterated by the single human warship that had appeared out of nowhere. The Eternal Resolve had done the impossible. Bonner, who had been part of this monumental victory, appeared on a screen in front of the assembled leaders. His face, weary but proud, flashed across the room. His voice echoed through the speakers, resonating with authority and strength. "We were never weak," Bonner's voice rang out, calm yet firm. "We just waited for the right moment. And when that moment came, we showed you the price of underestimating us." Those words, spoken from the heart of humanity's victory, became the rallying cry for the entire planet. They were a reminder to the galaxy of what humans were capable of. They had once been dismissed, ignored, and forgotten. But no more. The Eternal Resolve had made sure that Earth would never be ignored again. Outside, the ship hovered against the backdrop of the galaxy. Its darkened silhouette was a sharp contrast against the stars, its once damaged body now a shining testament to humanity's resilience. The Federation leader, now a prisoner of Earth's might, realized the gravity of his defeat. But his humiliation was not the end. It was merely the beginning. Humanity had learned to adapt, to survive, and now they had learned to thrive. They had no intention of retreating into the shadows again. The galaxy would remember what had happened here. It would remember the humans who had fought for their place in the stars, who had refused to kneel, and who had triumphed over a force that believed itself invincible. The eternal resolve, the symbol of humanity's strength, drifted slowly into the distance. It was no longer just a weapon of war. It was a beacon, a symbol of hope. The ship had survived the odds, and now it represented a new era for Earth. As the camera zoomed in on its gleaming surface, the stars reflecting off its hull, it became clear that this moment in history would never be forgotten. Yet, even as the ship moved further from Earth's orbit, the galaxy was still buzzing with whispers. The message of humanity's victory had already spread to distant corners of space. The Federation may have been brought to its knees, but new challenges were on the horizon. The galaxy was vast, and many would seek to test humanity's resolve. For Captain Bonner, the battle had been won, but the war was far from over. He knew that this victory, while sweet, was only a first step. There were forces in the galaxy that still saw humanity as weak, still saw Earth as a place to be conquered. But that was no longer the case. The eternal resolve had sent a message to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be ignored. It was not to be destroyed. "We will not bow," Bonner had said. "We will rise." The final shot of the eternal resolve against the stars left an indelible mark in the minds of all who witnessed it. The ship, glistening in the light of a distant sun, was more than just metal and machinery. It was a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it refused to back down, when it refused to surrender. It was humanity's answer to those who believed them weak. The galaxy would remember the name Eternal Resolve, and it would remember the humans who had once been forgotten, but who now stood at the forefront of a new era.